Hey everybody, it is Thursday, so that means that we are doing live real estate Q&A. So today's topic, we're going to talk about property condition disclosures. I know it's a instrument of torture to sellers, to people who are listing their home. Nobody likes filling them out, but they are super, super important, and that's why I want to talk about them. So before we start though, my purpose, Hafner Real Estate's purpose is to help you achieve your real estate goals. So that's why I do these real estate Q&As. I take the questions that I get as I work with buyers and sellers that they don't understand, that I get the same questions over and over, and I share them here so that you can have knowledge, because as you know, knowledge is power, right? So I share them here so you can have knowledge and that you can make a better informed decision when you're doing real estate, when you're making decisions about what to buy or sell. For most Americans, their home purchases and sales are the single biggest investments they will make in their lifetime. So my goal is to help you be a more educated consumer and make better decisions. So if this is info, you know someone who's selling a house, tag them in the comments and let them know that this is something they need to know about property condition disclosures. Because if you don't do these right, you can get in a lot of trouble. So it's really important that you understand how this stuff works if you're selling a house. If you're buying a house, it's important to know too, because you're going to get a property condition disclosure and you need to know what you're going to do with it and how you interpret it, so that you can make a wise decision in buying the house that you're going to buy. So share this, share it on your wall, let people know that we're spreading the word about teaching people about real estate so that they can be more educated consumers. And like I always say, show you care, give us a share. And also too, if you could, if this is info that you like and that you're enjoying seeing and you're feeling that it's helping you out, go to my Facebook page at Hafner Real Estate. There's a link right in the info here on this post. Go there, like Hafner Real Estate, and you will see more of this stuff on your wall. But let's talk for a minute about property condition disclosure. Like I said, this little paper right here, this is an instrument of torture to sellers. Sellers get this thing every time I hand this to a seller. They look at this and they kind of flip through it and they say, "Oh my gosh, I gotta fill this whole thing out." And then they want to start asking questions of me, right? So let's talk for a second. What is a property condition disclosure? Why does Tennessee require sellers to fill them out? What are the rules on these things? So in Tennessee, they're in pretty much around the country, but we're going to stick specifically to Tennessee because that's the area obviously I know best doing business here. But in Tennessee, there is a law that requires every home seller to disclose any known adverse facts about that property. So in fact, it says right here, the Tennessee Residential Property Disclosure Act requires sellers of residential real property to furnish a buyer with one of the following: a residential property disclosure statement, a disclaimer statement, and it says you must disclose all known material defects and must answer the question on the disclosure form in good faith to the best of the seller's knowledge as of the disclosure date. So what that means is that when you go to sell your house, if you've lived in that house, you need to let any potential buyer know everything you know of that's wrong with the house. If you know that there's water in the crawl space, you got to disclose that. If you know that your heat and air unit is on its last legs and the last time the fellow was out there to check it out, he said, "Hey, you got 6 months left and this thing's gonna just fall apart," you need to disclose that. And here's the reason. If you know that there's something wrong with your property, you have an obligation under the law, and I would argue morally, but an obligation under the law to let anybody buying that house know. Now there's another form called a property condition disclosure exemption, and that in certain situations allows you to not have to do a property condition disclosure. It does not though relieve you of the requirement of disclosing any known adverse facts about that property. So for instance, on the exemption, if you're selling a rental property or a property you're flipping, or any property you haven't lived in for 3 years or more, that's something where when you go to sell that property, you haven't lived there, so the assumption is that you don't know all about that property. So you can sign an exemption saying, hey, I haven't lived there in 3 years. I don't know what's wrong with the property. Buyer beware, do your inspections, check it out, and figure it out for yourself. However, in that scenario, if you know that the roof is bad, or you know that there's an electrical issue, or you know that there is a problem with that house, just because you haven't lived there in 3 years and you're exempt from filling out a disclosure, you are not exempt from disclosing any known material defects that you know about. So be careful that if you know there's an issue with the house, that you don't just sign an exemption and say, hey, don't know, up to you. Because if that buyer buys that house and it's discovered later that you knew there was a defect with the house and you did not disclose it, that's fraud. That's something where they could come back, they could sue you. There's all kinds of issues that can happen with that if it's an obvious thing that they know. So, you know, my philosophy is have integrity, always try and do the right thing. If you know there's a problem, let other people know about it. Don't try and paper over something that's a problem to save a few bucks or to get your house to sell more quickly, because the odds are you're going to open up just a bigger problem down the road. So, but back to the property condition disclosure. So most people, when they sell their house that they've been living in, they have to fill this out. And this is like a get out of jail free card, right? So when you're a seller, if you fill this out to the best of your ability, you have now laid out everything you know about that house. And if the buyer doesn't read it and they just sign it without reading it, and they discover after they buy the house that there was an issue with the house, as long as it's in that property condition disclosure, you're off the hook. You are not responsible for it because you disclosed it and they signed the disclosure saying that they accepted the house and that they knew that that issue was there. So you want to fill it out to the best of your ability. You want to include everything that you know is wrong with the house. And here's a little tip for you, right? If you're filling out your property condition disclosure and you're cringing because there's things that are like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to buy this house when they learn this, that's probably a good clue that maybe you should consider doing some repairs to the house before you sell it, so you can fill that out better so it looks more attractive to potential buyers. But that's a whole nother issue. From the buyer side, so from the seller side, let's finish that first. So from the seller side, if you disclose everything you know about the house, you are now safe, you are now protected. When you sell that house, if they discover other things that you didn't know about, there's nothing you can do about it. But if you fill that thing out to the best of your ability, and one of the things when I was learning the business almost 25 years ago, the people who trained me, they always said, hey, take that property condition disclosure, give it to the seller, and tell them, I can't answer questions, I can't do anything, walk away and let them fill it out. And the reason that as an agent that you do that we're taught to do that, is because if we help you fill out that disclosure, then all of a sudden, if something's wrong in it or it's not filled out properly, that can draw us into it for a lawsuit as well. So you know your house best, and it is a little bit of an intimidating document, but if you just slow down and fill it out, that's what you know, and read through it and take your time, it is not impossible to figure out. And there's some questions that, of course, as an agent, I can answer for you about what things mean. I just can't fill it out for you. I can't answer questions about your house because I don't know about your house. So you can, when you fill it out, if you take your time and read through it, you can understand it. It's a little challenging at times. Sometimes there's terms in there you don't know, or you got to Google them, or you got to ask your agent what they mean. And some agents have to Google what they mean and get back to you and tell you what they mean. But from the seller side, fill that thing out, do it to the best of your ability. Even if you're eligible for an exemption, if you know of a defect, you need to make a note of it so that buyers know and you don't put yourself in legal jeopardy. And if you're a buyer, make sure you read through the property condition disclosure. I've seen many, many buyers, they don't read through any of the paperwork. They just flip through it and sign their name. And then after they move into the house, they find out that there's a problem with the house that was disclosed by the seller. And they're upset because they want to blame somebody or sue somebody or make somebody fix it, when if they would have just read the property condition disclosure, they would have known what the problem was and they could have addressed it to make sure it was taken care of. So that's that's the main thing right there. If you're a seller, make sure you fill it out the best you can. Make sure you understand what you're doing there. Anything you know of that's a defect with that house, make sure you include that on your disclosure. As a buyer, make sure you read through it and that you ask questions and you get your agent to ask the seller's agent questions about what things mean if you don't understand. And that will also tell you some things that if you do a property inspection when you buy a house, of things that maybe you should have an expert come out and check out a little more closely. So that's the property condition disclosure. I know scintillating video here, but if you're selling a house or buying a house, this is stuff that should be very interesting and important to you. So check it out. If you have other questions about this, I am available. Put them in the questions. I'll come back through and answer them in the comments. Give me a call directly. My phone number is right on the post here. I'm happy to answer questions. Like I said, my purpose is to help you achieve your real estate goals. And the way I can do that is by taking my 20+ years of experience and sharing that with you so you understand how to do things. One of the things I'm really good at is complicated transactions, getting them across the finish line. So if you have a complicated transaction going on, you want some help with that, give me a call, let me know. Oh, my phone's ringing. Give me a call, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you with that. But until then, I will see you next time. Show you care, give us a share. Go check out on YouTube. There's a link right in the post here. Go check out on YouTube all of our real estate Q&As. They're all right there. We can look at them one after the other. If you're buying or selling a house, great info there. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.